Hello, it's Michelle, and welcome to my October 2014 reading wrap-up. I finished 10 books this month. First up was The Iron Trial by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare, and this is the first in a middle grade series. It follows a young man named Callum who has magical abilities, but his dad wants him to hide that fact. He does not want him going to the magic school. In the test to get into the magic school, Callum tries to fail the test, but is figured out and ends up in the magic school anyway. So of course chaos ensues from there. Because it is setting up a series, it was a little slow to get started, but towards the end it took a turn towards awesome. There were 3 things in a row that just blew my mind and I did not see coming and were just fabulous. And so I can't wait for the second book in this series. I did give this 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Then I was at a local bookstore and ran across a book I had never heard of, and that is Stronger Than You Know by Jolene Perry. And this book follows Joy. She is a teenager, and she starts out the book explaining to you how her name is so ironic, because of course Joy means happiness, and her life has been anything but. She has lived with an abusive, neglectful mother who she has been taken away from, and she's now living with an aunt, uncle, and 2 cousins that she barely knows. So she is having a huge amount of trouble adjusting. She has a counselor that helps her through it. She considers herself crazy, and she keeps a list of reasons that she's crazy and reasons that she's not crazy and keeps updating those as things change. I love the positive role that counseling played in her life. I love the ending to this book. I do not think it is realistic, but I enjoyed every minute of this book and ended up giving it 4 stars out of 5 on Goodreads. Next up, I was watching everyone's October TBRs and saw all the scary books and decided I needed to include one, and I'd had my eye on 172 Hours on the Moon by Johan Harstad for quite some time. So I thought this is the perfect opportunity to read it. I had read that it will keep you up at night, so I was kind of timid to read it during school, but it turned out to be a non-factor. I love the idea of the book. NASA wants to go back to the moon for a reason that they're not willing to share, but they need public support to get the funding. So they hold an international lottery and 3 teenagers win the opportunity to go to the moon with the astronauts that are performing the mission. I love the concept, but the writing, it just did not sit well with me. I thought the pacing was all kinds of wrong. I felt no connection to the characters whatsoever. I was able to guess the ending except for a small twist. It was okay. It was interesting enough for me to complete it, so I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. But in my opinion, the scariest thing about this book was the insta-love that happened and how terrible that was. So anyway, 3 stars out of 5 on Goodreads. Then, because I had had such luck with a book I had never heard of, I wanted to try to repeat that experience, and at a local bookstore, I picked up Survival Colony 9. Had never heard of this before I saw it in the store. It's written by Joshua David Bellin. This is his first novel, I found out later. It is a very bleak dystopian. There's barely any water, barely any food. There are very few humans left. There are creatures hunting them, and they are banded together in small groups. And the story is told through the eyes of a young man. He's a teenager. He has fallen and hit his head, and he can't remember what is going on. So it develops slowly, but that is perfect for this story. The writing was kind of sparse, also perfect for how bleak this story is. The survival part of the story had such a gritty and scrappy feel to it. It reminded me a lot of the Dustlands trilogy by Moira Young, and that is nothing but a compliment. I loved how it explored in the end the value of human relationships and in a life. So I ended up giving it 4 stars out of 5, and I really think this author is one to watch out for in the future. Then I read The Opposite of Maybe, and this was a cute romance story, among other things. Maddie Dawson is the author, and the character Rosie is going through sort of a midlife crisis. She's 43. She's been together with her boyfriend for over a decade, and he's been sort of depressed, not doing the kind of work he would like to do. He finds something that ignites his passion, but it's in California. He ends up moving to California. She stays behind because of an ailing grandmother. Then she figures out that maybe he is not the best suited person for her, kind of meets somebody else she's interested in, but discovers she is pregnant by the boyfriend in California. So she has some major life decisions to make, and that was very relatable to me. Also, the pregnancy later in life had a lot of meaning to me because my sister is going to be 39 when she delivers her third baby here in a couple of months. So the characters in this story were phenomenal. I loved the writing. No one was out to hurt each other, but all the characters were flawed and ended up hurting other people. And I just loved every minute of reading this book, and it made me giggle. It made me sad. It was all the feels. And I just thought this author brilliantly captured the uncertainty and difficulty of making major life changes. I did give this 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Next up, I read The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken. I knew that the third book was coming out. Actually, it's already out by now, but I knew that it was coming out, and I had never picked up this book, but I'd had it downloaded for quite some time. I loved the story. The story is what kept me reading on. I absolutely adored the character of Liam. I mean, how could you not love him anyway? But as a math teacher, he was writing math word problems for Zoo that were related to their life. And I absolutely fell in love with that and the fact that that was in the book. But most of the writing style drove me a little crazy. I felt like some lines in the book were supposed to be just slapping me in the face with significance, and I just wasn't able to grasp that significance until later when the story developed further. So I felt like I couldn't predict what the characters were ever going to do, and that was a strange feeling because I really cared about the characters and I was really on their side. So I had some difficulty with the writing, ended up giving it 3 stars out of 5. Next up, I picked up The Winter's Curse by Marie Rutkowski, and I'm not sure, I guess the cover is fitting, but I think it focuses on a very small part of the book. I love the straightforward writing in this. I loved the strong female protagonist that uses her mind more than her combat skills in the story. But this is a beautiful tale of forbidden love. And essentially, the main character is the daughter of a general who has conquered this land. And the people who lived there before are still there, but they're treated as servants and slaves for the most part. So she is kind of the ruling class, and she goes to an auction and ends up buying a slave. She feels a connection with him and buys him, sees an advantage that it would give her father. And yeah, the love is so forbidden on so many levels, and it develops perfectly. It is not insta-love, and I loved it. There was one line in the book that particularly I just thought it was brilliant based on who said it and the situation that was going on around them. People in brightly lit places can't see into the dark, and it was perfect timing for that line. I loved the growth of all the characters in the book, but especially the main character, and I can't wait to get my hands on book 2. The ending of this, oh my gosh, I want to get my hands on book 2 when it comes out, hopefully in 2012. Then I read Glaze by Kim Curran, and I loved the concept of this book. It is basically social media gone crazy. And we are following Petrie. She is a teenager. She is almost 16. She is the last one in her class to be able to get on to Glaze. You have to be 16 before you get on to Glaze. And it's basically social media that you access through a chip in your brain. So you don't need a tablet. You don't need a computer. Basically, your eyes kind of glaze over when you're accessing information, hence the name. I thought the pacing was good. I thought the characters were very well thought out. And I love the questions that this book posed about what is the role of society, what is the role of social media, and really played with the theme of order versus freedom in government. I ended up giving this 4 stars out of 5. My favorite character was Petrie's mom, Zizi. Absolutely my favorite character. Then I read another book that I got off bookoutlet.com. I had seen this book for quite a while, had been anxious to read it. It's Nothing by Jan Teller, and I thought this story was about a young man who becomes disheartened with life and gets depressed and climbs up in a tree, and his classmates have to convince him that life is worth living and come down and interact with them again. That is not what it was, and this book was deeply disturbing to me on many levels. I ended up giving it 2 stars out of 5 because I could appreciate the writing, but I can't recommend that anyone reads this. And if there were ever one book that I wish I could unread, this would be it. So there's my opinion on that. After that, I needed a book that I thought would be soothing, and also on bookoutlet.com, I had ordered Jumpstart the World by Catherine Ryan Hyde. I've already loaned it to my sister to read. This story follows Elle. She is 16. She lives in New York City with her single mom, and they're pretty well off. Mom has a new boyfriend, and boyfriend doesn't care for teenagers around the house. So mom's solution is to get Elle her own apartment in New York City, about 20 minutes away from where mom lives. So this forces Elle to change schools, and school is about to start, and she is very depressed. She's feeling very rejected by her mother. The one person in the world who should care about her the most has just chosen her boyfriend over her. Now she's going to be going on a cruise during Elle's birthday. So Elle makes some rash decisions. She gets a cat that is very difficult to take care of. She cuts her hair very short because her mother prizes beauty and considers long hair to be part of her beauty. So she's rebelling against her mom in these ways. In the meantime, she sees her neighbor Frank quite a bit, and he lives with his girlfriend Molly, and she does make friends at school and is doing okay at school, but she's having trouble fitting in a little bit because of her short hair that the kids don't know how to take her. She ends up developing a crush on Frank, although he's older, and along the way discovers that Frank is a transgender person who is moving from being a female to a male and used to be known as Franny. So she's dealing with all these questions about how she now feels about Frank, how she feels about herself, what does this mean in the scope of life? And I just thought it was a very tender way to explore a somewhat touchy subject, and it really made me think, and I love that about Catherine Ryan Hyde books. What is it that makes you care? And once you care, what could change that? And what is valid for changing that? So all kinds of issues and questions that it brought up, and was just gorgeous in the process. Ended up giving it 4 stars out of 5. So that was my reading month. Let me know if you've read any of these or what you thought about them if you have, and happy reading.